So in other words, what happened was you guys ate a bunch of sugar, right? Basically, there's no
We didn't
marshmallows.
really eat it, we just stuffed it in our mouth.
You stuffed a bunch of sugar in your mouth, right? And you started to salivate, started to melt, and whatnot.
In your body.
But the point was something as simple as tasting something sweet, right? Which we can do in small portions or big portions. Something that simple. What we just did, we had an overdose. Okay. In other words, debauchery means that when you have an overdose, when you have too much, when you have an excessive amount of anything, whether that's marshmallows or video gaming or drinking alcohol, an excessive amount, okay? So let me read this Bible verse for us where it talks about this. Galatians 5. I'm just going to read the second half. It says, the acts of the flesh are obvious. Sexual immorality, impurity, and debauchery. And then you jump down. Drunkenness is in there as well. And you continue. What does it say? I warn you that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God.
What does witchcraft mean?
We can talk about that later, Nathan. But we're just going to focus on the debauchery and drunkenness, all right? So in other words, we see here plainly in Galatians that it says, when you are drunk or when you are excessively engaging in any of your senses, that's a sin.
So do we just sin right now?
For the sake of the experiment, no. That was partially against your will.
Yeah.
That was a requested partnership will aspect.
Yeah, it was a competition.
Right. So we see here that, again, I want to be clear here, that debauchery, okay? Debauchery is the excessive use of any of your senses or of having anything in your life.
Willingly.
So think about this, okay? Because this is going to come up again later in our other units and our other things we talk about. So the reason why earlier I said that we, as if you say you are a Christian, Christians can drink, okay? But when they get drunk, what does that become? Debauchery, okay? Just like, for example, okay, Christians are able to do anything. Like I said, Christians are the most free. However, once they hit the point where they become slaves to something, once they hit the point where they become addicted, once they hit the point where they abuse their senses, that's when it starts to become a sin. And the reason why is because God gave us all of these senses not to abuse, okay? But God gave us sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing so that we can know who God is, so that we can have a relationship with God, so that when we look at the world around us, we know that God is everywhere, God is here, that God is real, that's the purpose of our senses. But once you start to abuse your senses, like when you drink too much, okay, what does that say about you? That you're actually not relying on God anymore. You start to rely on something else to help you, to save you. Now you can fill that with any blank, whether that's alcohol or whether that's something else.
YouTube?
Sure. Depending what you're watching as well. And so with that being said, this is why when we say Christians, if you follow God, it's not about abusing your body. Okay? Because being drunk and being high, that's abusing your body. It is an abuse. You are hurting yourself. Alright? And this is why as Christians, we don't hurt our own bodies. That's self-harm. Okay? Some people think that, when people cut themselves, right, their wrists, because of stress or because of anger, whatever, or when people have eating disorders, right, they're anemic, they're bulimic. Anemic meaning they choose not to eat. Bulimic meaning they eat and they throw up, all right, or they eat too much. Some people think that these things are serious things, so that's self-harm, right? And obviously suicide being probably the greatest act of self-harm. But even something like this, being drunk, okay, being high, is also an act of self-harm. Well, how come these things aren't in the same category as cutting yourself, as starving yourself? How come they're in different categories? Do we not see that it's the same thing we're doing here? Hurting ourselves? And so that's the point. This is why God says, hey, I made you, I love you, I care for you. So please don't hurt yourself. Okay? Use your senses to have a relationship with God. Rather than abusing your senses and rather than depending on something else to help you, such as drugs or alcohol, with your problems. And that's why, especially if you follow God and you follow Jesus Christ, that's why it's a sin. That's why it's bad. That's why it's not good for your life. And most importantly, that's why as Christians, we don't be drunk. We don't get high. We don't do anything that causes self-harm. Alright? And even taking a step further, okay, the abuse of alcohol and drugs is an indicator of deeper, darker problems. I'll read that again. The abuse of alcohol and drugs is an indicator, which means it's a warning of something deeper and darker in your life. Alright? And so if that is true, okay, then that means that every single person that we know, whether at school, whether in your own family, or anyone else, okay, who struggles with alcohol or drugs, or who likes to do it to the point where it leaves them unable to even function as a person, this is what it means. It is an indicator of deeper, darker problems. And if we're honest with ourselves, how many of us don't actually feel like we can talk about our real problems in our lives?
You said what?
How many of us feel like we actually cannot talk about real problems in our life? And when you feel like you can't talk about your real problems in your life, what do? Either you keep it all inside and you start to pressurize all of these things until one day it'll explode like a volcano. You wonder why all of these mass shootings, school shootings, okay, shootings at malls, shooting at movie theaters, shooting at schools, you wonder why these things happen. Because people don't have an outlet to help them express and voice the problems in their life. They just bottle everything up until one day they pop. And that pop is going to have an effect on everyone else. But that's the point, isn't it? If you follow Jesus Christ, if you have a relationship with God, all of our problems, all of our stress can have an outlet, can be expressed. It doesn't need to be hidden anymore. It doesn't need to be buried. You don't need to shove it under the bed or in the closet. It's only if you follow God, only if you have a relationship with Him through Jesus Christ, and you can voice these problems in your life. Apart from that, what are the other options? Drugs, alcohol, bury it, forget about it, run away, escape. And I'm sure if you can think of someone right now that you might know who abuses alcohol or drugs, and you ask them, hey, how's your life? Are things going great? Or are things going bad? 9 times out of 10, it's bad. And that's why the abuse is present. Alright? But with that being said, how can we serve and love people who do abuse alcohol or do abuse drugs? How do we interact with them? Well, if you are a believer, if you have a relationship with God, first things first, community. I can't tell you how many times, I guarantee 9 times out of 10, all of us here, okay? Every single one here. How many things do we do in our life that's based off of peer pressure? Think about that. How many things in our life do we do that's based off of people's expectations? How many things do we do in our life right now? Okay? It's based off of what other people want for us. Whether that's your parents, your siblings, your friends, your teachers, whatever. Think about it. Now, some of that can be good, right? Going to, doing good in school, doing good in sports, whatever. But it can also be bad. And so with that being said, I would say that one reason why people even abuse drinking and drugs is because they really are looking for community. They really are. Okay? And just to be clear here, drinking and drugs, it doesn't stop here. I guarantee you, when you go to college, it's only going to get worse. I actually had a video I wanted to show you guys about college, about drinking alcohol and sex, but I think it's a little too dark for us here in this setting. But the point being is that that problem, that yearning, that longing doesn't stop. That need for community, that need for people, the need for healthy relationships is always going to be there. Because that is how God has created us, to have a relationship. Most importantly, with God. Secondly, everyone else. But you see, when people start giving you this expectation, like all the commercials I showed you, hey, if you want to be a part of our community, if you want to be cool, if you want to fit in, you got to do what we do. All right? And if you don't do it, no community for you, no people for you. You can go be alone. And that's part of the battle here, is the community aspect. Many people abuse drinking and drugs because they don't have community. And once they do abuse drinking and drugs, then they have a false level community. All right? And so here, this is how we can love and serve. As Christians, if we say we are true believers, if we say we follow Christ, this is where the church comes in. The church is the true community. The church is that community that will love, that will serve, that will help, no matter the circumstances, no matter the background. We're not going to pressure you to do something before we help you. We're not going to force you to drink this alcoholic beverage or smoke this blunt before we help you, before we listen to you, before we spend time with you. How many people do you know right now? It's not like that. Only when you drink, only when you smoke or vape, then they will spend time with you. Then they will listen to you. Then they will be around you. But apart from that, don't expect them to be there. But this is the point, that in the church, okay, there is no criteria to have community in the church. And that's the beauty of it. That's why I said earlier, Christians are the most free. Christians are the most free. Because we have no expectations, we have no criteria, no standards, no prerequisites in order for us to be a community, whereas other people do. And that will, in the long run, harm you as well. Alright? So in the church, one way we can start serving and loving is show that we are the true community. We don't pressure you to do anything. You can just come, relax, chill, hang out, learn, struggle together. That's where it begins. And secondly, this one is just as important. Redemption. I know this word is not used much today. But remember earlier when I was talking about how so many people abuse drugs and alcohol because they're running away from their problems? Remember that? Well, this is where we, as children of God, if you truly follow God, if you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and all of your problems in your life, you will have redemption. Redemption means this. It doesn't mean that we ignore your problems. Okay? It doesn't mean that we just hide it. It doesn't mean that you wear a mask. Right? But what redemption means is that we recognize you have a problem in your life. More importantly, God recognizes you have a problem in your life. Alright? But God's not going to leave you sitting in the mess. God's not going to leave you to suffocate in your problems. God is actually going to say, hey, I'm going to help you. I'm going to strengthen you. I'm going to help you fight in and through this problem. God's going to say, hey, I'm going to give you back. I'm going to restore what was lost in your life. So here's an example. I have some family members, and I speak from experience, okay? I have some family members who do drink a lot. And I'm not just talking about like to socialize, I'm talking about like you don't remember what you did the day before. And part of this reason, they told me, is because they feel like there is no answer, no solution to their problems in their life. They've tried everything. And they feel like the only thing left to do with these problems is to bury it. Is to run away. Because nobody has the answer. No institution, no amount of education, no job, no people have the answer to their problems. So they run away using alcohol. And I see this. And that's what we have to offer them and show them. That, hey, let's recognize your problem, and instead of running away from it, let's face it together. You don't have to face it alone. Because if you truly have that community, then that true community will help you face your problems together. And that starts in the church. And then we will restore what you felt like you've lost. Alright? That it is in the church that redemption or restoration of what you thought you lost will be given only in the church. And this is what God, when we live and when we surrender and have a relationship with God, this is what He does in our life. He restores what we lost. God restores everything in our life that is so messed up. And even if, for example, like my family members, they feel like they don't love each other. Like as family members. Like I'm not talking about like brother and sister, you mess around, you prank each other. No. I'm talking about like they literally don't love each other. They have beef, they have anger, they have grudges against each other. And they can't even be around the same room without physically or verbally fighting. But at the same time, because they feel that way, they know that something's missing here. They know that they need that love. And if they don't have it in their family, where else can they get it? And so because they feel like they don't have that love, what do? They drink the problem away. They want to forget about it. Because they know it hurts them. But this is exactly where followers of Jesus Christ, this is where we come in. And we say, hey, I recognize that you feel like you're unlovable. That you feel like you don't have love and no one loves you. Because you've done XYZ, you messed up so many times. But I'm here to tell you that even if you messed up, no matter how many times you mess up, there is redemption in that. There is restoration in that. Only when we have a relationship with God. And we live that out in the church. Alright? So these two important things that I want to highlight is community and redemption. And this is where Christians, we as believers, come in. And this is why we don't and should not abuse alcohol or drugs. Because this community and this restoration of our life, it's already here. It's already been done. All we need to do is accept it and embrace it. Because Jesus Christ has already finished all of that. And of course the specifics are going to be based off of the situation. And if you have questions about that specifically, come talk to me afterwards. Alright? I know today it was pretty front-loaded, pretty heavy, but I believe it's very important that all of you guys know this, okay? Because as you get older, I guarantee you, the friends you hang out with, okay, they're going to start talking about alcohol. They're going to start talking about vaping, about marijuana, about all these other types of drugs, LSD, ecstasy, all right? And I'm here to tell you that God is not silent on the issue, okay? God has already said, hey, you don't need to feel that pressure from these false friends. The friends who will actually end up hurting you. But know that if you follow God, you already have a true community, true family in the church. Not only that, but your problems, your issues in your life, they can be restored. they can be redeemed because of Jesus Christ. Okay? And one last thing here. Now, on a lighter note, I want to show you guys one last video, okay? And in this video, listen closely, right? Because I think there's some important things this guy has to share with us.
Carp's signature summer ales. When friends gather, tradition, craftsmanship, and quality blend together into an affordable brain and liver poison we're sure you'll love. Because it's chemically dependence-forming in a portion of the population. Every bottle of Carp's is guaranteed to kill enough of your brain to impair your fine motor control, inhibitions, and judgment, but not enough to kill you, unless you drink enough of it. And actually, it's not even that much you have to drink. It tastes okay. How do we do it? We combine quality ingredients with small animals called yeast and a slurry of grain and water. They eat it and poop out the poison. Smooth, authentic poison. Then we seal them in a dark, airless container so they drown in their own poop, which we drink. Their rotting corpses form the bubbles. That's addictive liver brain poison, the way your grandfather used to order it. My family's proud of our long tradition of making fine gut poison. Carp's all natural. It'll make you feel different than you usually do, in a good way. But then the next day it'll feel like you were poisoned, which you were. So don't be surprised or complain to us about it. I'm Roger, by the way.
Wait, what?
So if you didn't know, that was supposed to be funny.
Oh, okay. So we can laugh. Beer ads were on us.
The beer ads were on us. So yeah, if you didn't know how beer was made, it's actually poop you're drinking.
Poop.
Yeah. From little organisms called yeast.
You made us eat poop.
Mm-hmm.
He made us eat poop.
So what they do is they put obviously a bunch of water, right? And then if you didn't know, carbohydrates are what? Complex sugars, right? So they take wheat, complex sugar, and they ground it up and they mix it with the water, and then they add the yeast. So the yeast go in, little organisms, they go in, they eat the sugar, the carbs, they eat the sugar, and that's called fermentation process. They eat the sugar, it goes into their guts,
Yummy,
they ferment
yummy.
it, and they poop it out. That's the beer. And that's what people drink, in case you don't know.
You just poisoned us today.
Yeah, but not enough to kill ya.
Do you know that?
Not enough to kill ya. You drink enough.
It's like, my name is
You
John.
guys wanna watch it again?
Yes.
Now that you guys understand what okay.
Yeah, by the way.
That was amazing, though.
Okay, listen closely, okay? Because they'll tell you.
You will eat dead bodies.
Carp's signature summer ales. When friends gather, tradition, craftsmanship, and quality blend together into an affordable brain and liver poison we're sure you'll love. Because it's chemically dependence-forming in a portion of the population. Every bottle of Carp's is guaranteed to kill enough of your brain to impair your fine motor control, inhibitions, and judgment, but not enough to kill you, unless you drink enough of it. And actually, it's not even that much you have to drink. It tastes okay. How do we do it? We combine quality ingredients with small animals called yeast and a slurry of grain and water. They eat it and poop out the poison. Smooth, authentic poison. Then we seal them in a dark, airless container so they drown in their own poop, which we drink. Their rotting corpses form the bubbles. That's addictive liver brain poison, the way your grandfather used to order it. My family's proud of our long tradition of making fine gut poison. Carp's all natural. It'll make you feel different than you usually do, in a good way. But then the next day it'll feel like you were poisoned, which you were. So don't be surprised or complain to us about it. I'm Roger, by the way.
You just want us to get fined, do you?
You know what they drink.
I think
Your
we
body
actually want
wants
to after we find out we're pregnant, we can call the police on
All right. Any questions about anything on the topic?
Carps.
If these commercials were that honest, they would get
No.
bankrupt. The
Exactly.
company
No one-
be broke
yeah,
in like
buy
a
it.
day. They'll be broken in a day.
No one will buy it. That's the point.
No way.
So any questions about anything about topic?
Who's that?
That's me.
Oh, really? Yeah, Hungry Shark. Oh, that kid. Who? I thought that was like technology.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. With that said, let me pray for us. We're good to go.